to join you virtually, at least for the next little while. I'm going to apologize in advance in case my four-legged security team goes on alert, and let folks know that we are live streaming. We offer live streaming options for this meeting. You can find a link on our webpage under Find It Fast, or by going directly to www.ysd7.org/board meetings. We are changing our public comment options for our meetings. Beginning next Monday, there will be an option for public comment during the Monday afternoon meetings, as well as during our business meetings on the third Tuesday evening of every month. If any of the viewing audience has an interest in viewing past meetings, you can find a link to our past meetings on our webpage, to the Yakima School District YouTube channel, where you can view past meetings that have been recorded and posted there. I see that we are live streaming now and the recording is on. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett?
Here.
Director Walker?
Here.
Director Navarro Jr.?
Here.
President Rice?
Here.
And Vice President Villanueva is excused.
Thank you all for being here this afternoon. We are extremely lucky to have a student with us today to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, and I believe his teacher, Ms. Dio, is here to introduce him.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Laura Dio. I'm a nationally certified speech language pathologist, and I'm working at Garfield Elementary this year. It is with great pride that I introduce you to Sebastian Lopez.
Welcome, Sebastian.
So, do you want to tell people to stand? I guess if you could please stand for the flag salute.
No. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicely done, Sebastian. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like what grade you're in?
I am in third grade.
You're in third grade. Are you having a good year so far?
Yeah.
Good. I'm gonna, the rest of the board may have some questions for you. They aren't hard, I promise. And so we're gonna call on them one by one, and if they have any questions, they'll ask them, and if nothing else, they'll thank you for being here today, okay? Okay. Mr. Navarro, you want to kick this off for us?
Sure. I'll just there we go. So hello, my name is Raymond. Nice to meet you, and thank you for being here today. It's great to see that you're developing your leadership skills so early. That's awesome. So just thank you for being here and leading us in the pledge. And I have a question for you. What is your favorite subject in school?
Recess.
All right, that's mine too. That was mine. Get to go out and play with your friends and hang out, right? Thank you so much for being here today.
Mr. Walker?
Yes, I got a chance to meet with Sebastian a little bit before the meeting, so I know he's in third grade at Garfield. But tell me what's one of your favorite things to do when you're in the classroom?
Math.
Math, okay. Well, stick with it. Thanks for being here today.
Mr. Beckett?
Well, I think my favorite question is always to know what's the best thing that you can eat at lunch at Garfield?
Pizza.
Yeah? Okay, I like that answer. Thank you so much for being here today and helping us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Sebastian, would you like to tell us about May's character word of the month?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
May's character word of the month is reference.
Can you tell us a little bit about that word?
Reference means honor or respect felt or shown.
Good job. That's a big word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for telling us about the word of the month. You've done a great job today, and we're very happy to have you with us and to have you lead us in the pledge and to share the character word of the month. And thank you to Ms. Dio for being there with you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you all. Okay, next on our agenda is the Yakima land acknowledgement. Mr. Walker, would you lead us in that reading today, please?
I would be happy to. Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation. The people of Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties. Today, we honor those Native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture. We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today. We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial. An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect and a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture. It also honors the truth. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Next, we have two proclamations. The first proclamation is for Arts Education Month. And Director Beckett, could you read that proclamation for us, please?
Certainly. A proclamation for Arts Education Month in May of 2022. Whereas the month of May has been recognized as Arts Education Month by many communities and school districts across the state of Washington, and whereas the arts embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, and whereas learning in the arts enhances and enriches the lives of all students, and whereas arts education teaches creative problem solving and cultural knowledge and offers multiple pathways to understanding for different types of learners, and whereas arts education increases connections and engagement between teachers, students, and the connected community that surrounds them, now therefore be it resolved that the Yakima School District Board of Directors designates the month of May 2022 as Arts Education Month, and be it further resolved that the Yakima School District Board of Directors calls on the community to celebrate and promote the arts in our schools and to take action to provide equitable access to arts learning for all students in our learning community.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a recognition for Better Hearing and Speech Month. Director Walker, could you lead us in talking about Better Hearing and Speech Month?
May is Better Hearing and Speech Month. Each May, Better Hearing and Speech Month provides an opportunity to raise awareness about communication disorders and the role of the American Speech and Hearing Association members in providing life-altering treatment. For 2022, the theme is Connecting People. In the Yakima School District, we have a team of 15 district-employed speech-language pathologists, 13 contracted speech-language pathologists, 1 district audiologist, 1 augmentative and alternative communication specialist, and 19 speech bilingual speech pro-techs. Communication is a foundational skill that helps you connect with people. Good communication allows you to understand and express your thoughts, feelings, and your learning. Our team is passionate about identifying and helping students who have communication challenges. This team is tasked with evaluating communication disorders, designing and providing skilled therapy, consulting with team members, and tracking student data and progress for students in preschool to high school. The SLP team works very hard to provide speech and language disordered students with the tools they need to be effective communicators while in school and in the community. In 1927, the Federation of Organizations for the Hard of Hearing created National Hearing Week to raise awareness and promote understanding of hearing health and communication disorders. In 1958, the event expanded to a month-long celebration known as Better Hearing Month. Today, the American Speech Language Hearing Association celebrates the month of May as Better Hearing and Speech Month. Yakima School District's audiologists, speech and language pathologists, and our teachers of deaf, hard of hearing students serve over 1,300 students preschool through age 21. In honor of Better Hearing and Speech Month, Yakima School District Board of Directors would like to acknowledge the substantial role that audiologists, speech and language pathologists, and teachers have played locally, regionally, and nationally in raising awareness and promoting understanding of hearing health and communication disorders. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Next, we have on our agenda board reports. The first report to the board is on athletics and activities.
Martha, may I make a request before we proceed?
Sure.
Yes, I'm just wondering if we can get more light in this room. It's just the light's really messing with my vision. I'm in the spotlight and then the light kind of goes to dark. So just, I'm not able to read. So if we can do that, that would be very helpful for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. If it can be done, they will do it for you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the report from Athletics and Activities by Sarah Cordova. Mr. Superintendent, do you want to lead this off or just move right to Sarah?
I'll go ahead and lead it off. Thank you very
Okay.
much. It's my pleasure today to share with you a presentation through our combined safety and security director, but also district athletic director. Sarah Cordova wears many hats in our district, and she does a phenomenal job in anything that she has responsibility over. So I certainly thank her for that and the work that she has done this year with regards to athletics. And without further ado, I'll pass it to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So thank you all for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about our sports in Yakima School District. Oh, and then am I doing this? Okay. Sorry, this is a new experience for me today. So what I want to start with first is just to share with you some of the challenges that we have been working through at high school sports. So as you know, we have recently come out of the COVID restrictions for athletics. And so that has actually, COVID has brought about a lot of challenges that our high school sports teams and athletic directors have done a great job of working through. But we have been transitioning back to regular sports, and it has been somewhat difficult. As you know, we had to stop sports midway through spring sports 2 years ago. And so in order to get kids back and excited about being in sports, it's kind of been a transition. So kids didn't immediately all get excited to be back. And so we've been working on ways to get them back involved and excited about being on sports. Also, another difficulty for our kids is just transitioning back for academic eligibility. A lot of our kids, just like they did in other communities, really struggled with the online learning, and as a result, they did not excel in their academics like we wanted them to. And so keeping their grades up in order to be eligible has been somewhat challenging as well. So our high school teachers and athletic directors and coaches have really been working hard to make sure that the students are getting caught up with their academics so that they are eligible for playing in sports. Another thing that has been a real challenge is just all the testing that was required in previous seasons. And so this spring is actually the first season that we have not been having to test kids twice or 3 times a week. And so that has actually been really nice for our kids and for our coaches. It took a lot of manpower, a lot of time to get all the testing done, and then all the things that went with that. So it's been very nice this spring to be able to have a fairly normal spring season. Another challenge that we have been facing and working through is in our area, just like in other areas of the nation and our valley, there really has been a shortage of officials. And a couple of reasons for that. When there were no games, the officials had other jobs. And so it wasn't worth their time to continue staying up with their certification for being officials. And so we ended up losing a lot of officials for that. And then another challenge is many of the officials just did not want to, quite frankly, take the COVID vaccine. And so then they were eliminated from the job. So that was another reason. So there were 2 reasons that we have lost a lot of officials. If we don't have officials, we can't have safe contests. And so that has been a challenge that we are working through and hoping that we can get some additional officials. And then the last challenge that we've really been working through is transportation. And you'll hear this theme a couple of times in my presentation, but we have really struggled with bus transportation, with having enough drivers for our sports teams to get them to and from contests. We just simply, 1, don't have enough drivers, and 2, we've tried many different outside the box thinking, just trying to come up with some different alternatives, and they really haven't been very effective. So we're continuing to try, and we're hoping that we can get some more drivers, but that is something that we continue to work through. And this is not moving forward, Barb. I'm sorry. Thank you. But some positive things. There are a lot of positive things with high school sports. So Davis and Eisenhower High Schools both have a very strong collaborative relationship between the 2 schools and their athletics programs. They're very supportive of one another's programs. Both ADs, Bob Stanley and Paul Stevens, have very strong relationships between the 2 of them, and they promote positive relationships between their 2 schools, their coaches, and their athletes. And I don't know that that's something that happens in all communities, but they have a very collegial relationship, which is very evident and very appreciated. Bob Stanley, the athletic director at Davis High School, has served as the president of the Big 9 League for over 10 years, and he is a great leader in that organization. And that has served our athletes and our schools very well because his voice is heard and it's listened to. And so he always advocates for our kids and for our community. And so I think that's a great thing for our district. Overall, our turnouts for athletics have been pretty solid this year, especially in light of all the challenges that we have faced. And we are returning to normal with spring sports turnouts numbers higher than we've had in recent seasons, especially since, like I said, we had to stop sports 2 years ago with COVID. So that's been really challenging. Last year, if you remember, we had very strange seasons. They were very short and very condensed, and that was, at least we had something for our kids, but this has been really nice to have our kids in full seasons this year and this spring. And in some of our sports, we have district playoffs starting this week. So that's pretty exciting as well. So to highlight Davis, Davis has had a really strong year with sports this year. Their boys basketball team went to the state tournament, and I had the privilege of being able to go to their game there. It was very exciting. We had a good turnout. The boys played their hearts out. Our cheerleaders were there in strong support. They were a very young team, and they are planning to return next year. And so that was a big highlight for them. Davis has a large increase in the girls wrestling turnout, which is pretty exciting for our girls. We have some pretty great wrestlers in our girls program there, and they are expecting that program to continue to grow. On a side note, our middle schools are trying to grow their girls wrestling teams as well. So that will help feed into the high school wrestling teams. And we have one of the top golfers in the league at Davis by the name of John Kim. So he has been doing a great job this year, and they're looking forward to seeing him do well in the final games or final matches of the season. And next slide, Barb, please. Thank you. And then looking ahead, some of you may have heard that we are working to address some of our fast pitch and slow pitch equity needs for our Davis girls athletes. And so we are looking at some facility improvements for equity, hoping that our Kiwanis turfing project will be approved and we can move forward with that. And so that's a great partnership between our school district and our community, our city. So they're hoping that that is something that is worked through and is successful. They are also seeing very strong collaboration amongst their coaches with the different sports teams at Davis. And so they are working together to make sure that there is a great schedule for all athletes to have conditioning opportunities during the summer to keep them in shape and healthy and working out in a productive way and keeping it equitable as well. And then their big hope is that our YSD middle schools can rejoin the Mid-Valley League in the fall. I will talk more about that in a few slides, but that has been something that they're hoping to have happen. For Eisenhower, students are seeing a strong return to sports participation, so they are excited about that at Eisenhower. The girls basketball team did a great job this year and they won the league title. The boys cross country team placed third in state, so that was a pretty exciting experience for their school as well. And then their wrestling is also doing a great job. We had 2 state finishers, Mateo Escobar in 11th grade placed third, and Damian Gama in 12th grade placed 5th for boys wrestling. And then I believe some of you were able to attend Carol Finney's memorial at Eisenhower. And if you were there, you saw what a wonderful event that was, honoring her and her legacy. And she loved Eisenhower and the fast pitch team and the program so much that she donated 10% of her estate, which is a very sizable amount. Quite honestly, we heard that she invested in some pretty large companies during her lifetime. She invested in Microsoft in the 70s and never sold. So she had quite an estate to leave. And so that's a wonderful donation that she gave to our fast pitch team. So that was pretty exciting. Looking ahead for Eisenhower Athletics, they are looking to hire a new boys basketball coach. And so that's something that they're working towards right now. They are also, as you remember, we had a pretty significant event occur outside Zeffel a couple of months ago. And that did happen during sports practices for spring. And that really did have a big impact on the students and the staff, but especially the athletes that were out there at that time. It was pretty impactful to them. And so the coaches and the staff and the AD they're really working to take care of their social and emotional needs, just making sure that everybody feels safe and secure when they're on the facilities. They're also excited that they have past alumni returning to volunteer coach their athletics teams. And so that's always neat, when kids grow up and become adults and then they want to come back and coach again. That's pretty exciting. So they're happy for that. And again, to reiterate what I said earlier about Davis, Eisenhower 2 is hoping that the YSD middle schools can rejoin the Mid-Valley League in the fall. So moving on to middle school sports, just to recap how the seasons went this year, it was a little different each season. So in the fall, we did finally get to join the Mid-Valley League, something that had been worked on for many, many years. So in the Mid-Valley League, there are 14 different districts that are involved with that. And so there's a lot of cross-town, cross-valley traveling from school to school. So West Valley, Natchez, Prosser. So there's a lot of schools that the kids get to play with. So we worked really hard to make that work. We went to many meetings. We worked very closely with our transportation department to make sure that our kids could get to all of the games. There were days that Art and Rich and I spent entire days trying to make sure we had buses to get kids to games. that just simply was not sustainable. We were not even able to get charter buses to get the kids because of COVID issues. And so we were able to make it through fall season, but at the end of fall season, we had to say, well, we need to take a break from this. It was getting too challenging. And so for winter one, we returned to our previous model in Yakima School District, where our kids just did cross-town games. So Wilson would go to Washington, Franklin would go to LC, and they would go amongst each other. So we made that work. It was challenging sometimes, and we did have to cancel a couple of games, but we did make it work. Winter two, things were getting even more challenging. And so what we had to do for winter two is pull things back even more. And we only did in-building intramurals. So Wilson kids only played other Wilson teams. Franklin kids only played Franklin teams. That was very disappointing for our kids, for our coaches, for parents. And so when spring came along, the administrators at the middle schools agreed to allow the student athletes to leave at 1:30 on the days of their games. That was something we were really trying to avoid doing, but because they just really weren't getting experiences at all, they agreed to do that for spring. So our kids on their game days are leaving at 1:30 and going to the other schools to play their games. And so at least they're getting some intramurals where they're not just sitting in their own school. So that's been better. Some of the great things about our middle school sports and our athletic directors is they really are strong communicators with one another. They collaborate and communicate with each other multiple times during the week. They communicate with Shirley, our secretary, and myself as well, just trying to keep things moving forward for our kids. They have worked really hard at problem solving because we've had a lot of challenges to work through, and they keep positive attitudes. So they're really working hard to try to make the best experiences for our kids possible. The turnouts have varied from school to school and season to season. As you can see up on the screen, there's a picture of our Washington Middle School cross-country team. And yes, that is the entire team. So overall, we're having much smaller turnouts, but at least we still are having opportunities for our kids. And then moving to our elementary. And hopefully you've heard some of our schools being involved with Soccer for Success. It is a partnership that we have worked on with Washington Youth Soccer and the U.S. Soccer Foundation. And we have 4 of our elementary schools participating in Soccer for Success. It's an after-school program. And the 4 elementaries that are currently involved are Barge Lincoln, Hoover, Adams, and Garfield. It started with 2 schools and now it's grown. We're hoping to grow it to be even bigger so that eventually we have all 14 of our elementary schools involved. But right now it's pretty small. It is an after-school program where kids get social and emotional learning. They get a snack that's healthy, and then they get to go out and play soccer. So it's a very ground level, instructional level of soccer, but they're having a lot of fun. They have 5 core components that they work on that they center the program around, which is physical activity, health and wellness, mentorship, community engagement, and safe spaces. One of the things that was so exciting last year is the 2 schools that were involved last year, Hoover and Barge Lincoln, had a great turnout with the parents, but then at the end of the season, they had final games where the 2 schools played one another and families brought food to share. And so it was a great community building activity that brought families together with schools and kids, and it was a lot of fun. And so I know the schools and the families, and especially the kids, really loved all of the work that went into that. So these components work together to reduce the effects of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and provide the tools to empower youth to establish lifelong healthy habits. And then before we get to questions, we did get some past amendments with the WIAA that came through today. So just briefly to share with you, in the past, we've had 9 districts in the state for athletics, and we have redistricted to 6. And that's where the WIA executive board representation comes from, those 6 districts. There's also an amendment that allows students to retain the full number of practices previously completed upon return from an extended absence. So if kids started practices and then were gone for a long time, they would have to start over again in order to have the correct number of practices in order to be eligible to play. So that has been changed. And then Rule 18.76 allows students to be placed on academic probation at the start of the fall sports season if they fail to meet grade requirements in the second semester or third semester of the previous school year. So those are the 3 main past amendments that came through. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I do have one regarding middle school sports and the team selection process. So I'm just wondering about that when they do compete with the Mid-Valley League.
So when they do compete with Mid-Valley League, they can only have a certain number of kids traveling. And so we really try not to cut kids, but sometimes we have to. And so then coaches have to use a criteria to cut kids. And so that needs to be made very clear to the students and then also to the parents. But we also try to keep those students involved as well. So if they don't get to travel, we want them still practicing and doing intramurals within the school building. And then sometimes kids don't keep up their eligibility status. And so if kids are dropped, then those kids can move right into the team that travels. You're welcome.
I had just one question about officials. When I observe what's going on around the country with officials in youth sports and school sports, one of the issues that seems to crop up is how audiences and parents treat officials. And I haven't observed any around here, but have we had any issues with that in this community?
I know of one in particular, and I actually had to address that parent and write a letter and say that he couldn't go to games for the remainder of the year. Yes, so if those come to me, then we deal with them.
Any other questions for Sarah? Sarah, I do have a question about the amendments. Are those are pending amendments to WIAA rules, or they've been approved by some delegate body?
They were passed.
They were
today.
passed.
Yeah, and the email
So-
came out today.
So what do the changes to the districts, the districts in WIAA are like regional boundaries, sort of. What did those do for District 5, which is the district that we were in? I don't know if we still are or not, but what does that do for us?
Well, since it just came out today, I apologize. I don't have a lot of information to share on that. I'd have to get back to you on that. I do remember that both Bob and Paul were saying that they were hoping that the redistricting wouldn't occur. I think they felt that things were more positive for Yakima School District the way they were, but it was outvoted. And so I will definitely look into that and let you know.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the great presentation as well. It's
You're welcome.
it's exciting to know that our kids are back in athletics, even in smaller numbers. But I know that word of mouth will spread rapidly as kids get excited about the ability to play and compete in various activities in athletics. So thank you for that presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, don't go anywhere. Sarah Cordova and Andy Gonzalez are going to talk about security measures. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Rice. The only way to improve a presentation done by Sarah is to add Andy to it. So we have the dynamic duo here. I will call out that this is regarding safety measures, proactive measures in the Yakima School District. You may think that this is potentially in response to something that has occurred recently. That is not the case. We've been looking at safety measures for well over a year. In fact, the presentation today has had numerous people assess the veracity of what this could mean for us moving forward. So I just wanted to, in my introduction, let you know that we have been looking at proactive measures for quite some time. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Sarah and Andy.
Thank you. So you get to hear me some more. But I am excited, and I know Andy's excited as well, to share with you Centegix. And like Dr. Green just said, this is a system that we have been looking at for quite some time. And Andy is going to pass around some badges for you to take a look at. If you press the button that's in the middle of the badge. Press it 3 times and you'll feel it vibrate. So that's an important part of what Centegix is. So Centegix is a simple to use. Go ahead and click, Barb. So it's a simple to use wearable emergency notification system that empowers everyone equally and reduces response time. So if you see that it's on a lanyard, it can actually go behind your staff badge. So it's not visible to other people, but the idea is that staff will wear it at all times if they so choose. And it's quite simple to use. All that it has is just the one simple button that you would push. So in the past, and we can go ahead and scroll. In the past, we've gone through like a series of evolution with school safety notification systems. Some of you may have seen the panic button that many of our office managers, I believe all of our office managers have a panic button at their desk. And I know from my past work in school buildings, sometimes those get pushed and immediately we'll have 5 police officers in the office wondering what the emergency is. So it doesn't tell any information, just I think what it says is there's a burglary in progress. There's kind of an odd alert that goes out. It doesn't really tell what's happening. Then the next phase that came through was, oh, we can stay back on the last one. The next phase that came through was the mobile phone apps. So for years we had Rapid Responder and Fast Alert, and that was an app that you could put in a code and you could communicate with people and you could alert of a lockdown. But if you didn't have your phone with you, or if the person, sometimes office managers would not want to put programs onto their personal cell phones. So not everybody would have that access. So it wasn't accessible to everybody. It wasn't very immediate, and it really didn't do what it was needed to do. So now we have evolved into wearables, which you would have it ideally on at all times. It's worn around your neck with your lanyard, and it's not intrusive. So these improvements that we've been having have worked to move forward to be very life-saving improvements. So the first thing that happens, there's 2 kinds of alerts. There's a staff alert and there's a campus alert. So a staff alert, you would click the badge 3 times, and did everybody get a chance to feel the badge vibrate? So you click it 3 times, and that would be a staff alert. But if it's so that would be like if a student got injured on the playground, or somebody is very sick, maybe they had a seizure. We've had students having seizures in schools recently. So you click it 3 times, and that would get the nurse, it would get the building principal, perhaps the security officer, or the SRO that's in the building. That's what a staff alert would do. But if there's a serious situation, maybe there is somebody with a gun, or there's a very volatile, angry parent, something very big that would need to put a building into lockdown, then that same button, just keep clicking it. You click, 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 and you can do it, 15, 20 times. You just don't stop clicking it until you are doing something else. So, maybe you're talking to somebody and trying to move forward, but you click it a lot of times, and then it puts the building immediately into lockdown. So like I said, the staff alert, all employees would be wearing that if they so choose. And that would be for things like fights, medical issues, custody things, threats in building. And the people in the building that would have access to that information would be administrators, security officers, perhaps your office staff, SROs, and they would have it on their phone, or if they had it on their computer, they would have the map of the building. It would show exactly where the person in crisis is located by the red dot. You can see that on the screen. So it goes to the building responders. So that's the staff alert. They would immediately go to where the situation's at and be able to respond appropriately. And then a campus-wide lockdown, if somebody is in very big emergency and they continue clicking the button, then that would signal a campus-wide lockdown. It would immediately put the building into lockdown. You would see visual cues. Those would be in the classrooms. So it would be a beacon. And as a district, we can choose which colors that we want the different alerts to be. So for most cases, most schools would choose red for a lockdown. Those would be in the classrooms, in the hallways, anywhere where students and staff might be. So it'd show you visually that there's a lockdown going on. It connects to the intercom system, so you would hear that you were in a lockdown. All staff computers, not student computers, all staff computers would display that we were in lockdown. So if you were in a classroom and you weren't anywhere near the situation, you would still know the building is in lockdown. So you see the cue on the beacon, you hear the auditory cue through the intercom, you see it on your screen. It'll tell you lockdown. And then the information as far as where the alert is coming from, again, shows up on the screen for the people in the building. And also, and we can choose to do this as the district, have it go to our local police officers, 911 operators. It would show exactly where the person in distress is located. And we actually tested this out back in the fall. We had Centegix come and visit YB Tech, and we tested it. We could see exactly which classroom, which floor the alert was coming from. And it would also follow you as you're moving for up to, was it a minute? A minute. So if I started the clicking here in this room, and I was perhaps running from danger, and I made it to my office, within that minute, it would follow, my dot would follow me to where I was for that 1 minute, which is pretty incredible. You know, we had our incident that happened a couple months ago at our other campus, and one of the things that we have learned is not everybody in stressful situations remembers their directions. And so the first call that came through the radio, the person was saying that it was happening in the south parking lot. Well, it was in the northeast parking lot, nowhere near the south. And so everybody was going to the wrong location. Had we had Centegix, everybody going to the emergency would have known exactly where the situation was happening, and it would have saved a lot of valuable time. Another thing that I wanted to share with you as well is I spoke with a teacher in one of our middle schools, and I don't know if you know this, but we did have a student assault the teacher. So the student was having an incident. It is a student in a self-contained classroom, and the teacher had been using a therapeutic hold on the student. That's what we do in some of our classrooms. It's a trained hold that they have because the student was hurting herself and threatening to hurt others. The teacher did not have the pair in the room at the time when this was going on. And so when she thought that the student was calm, she let go of the student in order to call the office. Well, in that time frame, the student actually assaulted the teacher and hurt her quite badly. And I talked with her and I asked her if she thought if she had had this, would that have happened? And she said, no, she would have had a completely different outcome, and the student would have been safer and the teacher would have been safer. And so, you know, she was thankful that this is something that we are looking at and wished that she had had that in that incident. The feedback that Centegix has gotten from different schools and their staff has been very positive. One of the questions is how easy was it to use the badge? And 4.9 out of 5 was saying, they said it was 4.9 out of 5 with easeability. And if they felt safe and supported as a staff member, and 4.5 out of 5 said yes. And you can see some of the quotes that are on the slide. One of the people said, this is the best safety measure I've had access to in the 16 years I've taught. Another person said, being able to immediately have access to be able to get help is great. Sometimes we can't get to the phone or don't have one around. This way it ensures that we have access to help no matter where we are on campus. So, you know, you don't always have your, like, for instance, right now, I don't have my cell phone with me. We don't always have our phones on us. So if you have something that is always with you, you are always able to get help no matter what the situation is. Something that you may be wondering about is, does this track people? And it only works if you push the button. So there's no way to monitor somebody if they haven't pushed the button. If you're just wearing it, it doesn't monitor you. It only is activated if the person wearing it activates it. And it only works at school settings. So it works on our school grounds, but once you step off our school campuses, it doesn't work. So if I was at home and I have a 3-year-old and my 3-year-old starts pushing the button, it'll vibrate, but it won't alert anybody. But once I get back onto campus, it'll work again. So I have one badge, and it would work at Barge Lincoln, it would work at Central Services, it would work at Eisenhower. The same button will work as long as I'm on a school district campus, but nowhere else. So I think that's also very important information. So just to reiterate how this works, it's a one button activation that empowers everyone. There's total campus coverage. So it's playgrounds, it's sports fields, it's in the building, in the gym, in the classroom. The location information saves response time. They know exactly where the incident is happening. And then the audio and visual notifications communicate to everybody that we want it to communicate with. So as a district, we have the ability to determine who it communicates with.
I'm here to talk about the technology. And so I'd like to start with our technology first. Currently at YSD, we are using our phone systems to alert for issue. And the challenge with that is depending on the situation you're in, having to remember the code that you have to type into the keypad and run to the phone may not be feasible. Second, if you're outside of a classroom in an open area, you would have to literally message someone over a phone or run if you don't have a walkie-talkie to initiate an alert in the building and district-wide. So those aren't always feasible in the situations that we have. And in some incidences, even if you're in the room, getting to that phone could be of significant challenge, as Sarah stated. Syntigix, even if you're outside, works within 1,000 feet of the nearest repeater. So there's a lot of options for expanding that onto some of our larger campuses with outside repeaters. But even within a walled infrastructure, we can get about 1,000 feet out from the last classroom that it would have or the last repeater that it would have access to. And so those are important parts of this solution that differentiate it from the solutions we use. Second, like Sarah was saying, is that even if we had an apt solution, a lot of times my phones are right behind me. And I, as a kind of a security nut, have a pretty complex code that I have to type in. And I'm pretty sure that in a stressful situation, the ability for me to pull out that phone, put in that code is not reasonable or feasible. It might be a little unrealistic. And so there are some advantages to this wearable model that creates a greater safety umbrella when you look at how people react under stress. You know, it's easy to look at things under reasonable situations and say, well, this seems like we should be able to do it. But what we have learned in kind of studying the situations that have happened in the district and through iteration is that right now we don't have a solution that really reaches out to people and is available to them under very stressful situations for all, should they choose to opt in. And so, again, I think it really lends itself more to the ease of use and that umbrella of security, and I think aligns with where we're wanting to be. I think it's important to note that this is really a software solution that's initiated by hardware. So the hardware is there, but until it's initiated, the software doesn't come alive and doesn't start doing what it needs to. So it is not creating interference. We actually tested it. We didn't take their word. We used our clean air tools to make sure that it was in the frequencies that they said it was, and that it wasn't broadcasting at times it should not. In the YV Tech incident, and we found it to be as presented. And so, you know, from the technology standpoint, we feel that their characterization of the solution is exactly what it's doing. It should also be noted that this is pretty standard technology. It's a variant of Bluetooth. It's a lower power version of Bluetooth that's been around for a while. It's called Zigbee. It's been used in schools for some time with voting systems. And so it is a technology that we've had in schools, had around people, and is safe to use and won't interfere with our current technology infrastructure. And I think really the last thing is it was designed to have an ease of installation so that a contractor that we help partner with and Syntigix helps partner with can come in an evening in most of our campuses and in maybe one or two evenings to deploy, and it's not going to really create any issues with instruction and delivery of instruction. And so when you look at it, you know, it's there's no wiring for the most part. It's built to snap into ceiling grids, safety loops to be able to meet code. And it's a very, very simple solution that really does a lot and was well thought out for the school arena.
Sort of a quick tongue-in-cheek question on that topic from security. One of our really bright junior or senior students couldn't hack this during finals week.
No,
Okay.
no, it's encrypted. So it's encrypted on its own channel. And remember, it's not broadcasting until it's told to broadcast. What I will state, just to be clear, is that everything is man-made, and there is nothing that is 100% foolproof. So I don't want to oversell it. We have to constantly monitor and patch our network as it is, and I don't feel this falls outside of the current standards that are industry standards and align with our standards.
That was one of my questions. But my other question is, with cell phones, you can get into a certain area of a school and your bars will drop from 5 to 4, whatever, down to 1 or whatever. So I'm just wondering if these would work in all areas of the school. And
Yes.
considering, some of the schools are older and have a lot more barriers, concrete and so forth and so such. So I'm just wondering about that.
Yeah, that was our concern. But as each device becomes a repeater, each light, each device that we hang, it becomes a repeater. So what they do is create a mesh, and it starts finding the path that allows it to communicate back to the server that's in our IDFs, our data closets.
Any other questions for Andy or Sarah? I just had one question. If you have a staff member that's in a situation that needs like 911 support for some emergency, and the staff member is pushing that button and pushing and pushing and pushing, how does 911 know what the event is and what type of emergency response to send?
So for medical emergencies, we would want the staff member to push the button 3 times. And when the button is pushed 3 times, that signals a staff alert. An administrator, a security officer, somebody who is identified in the building as a building responder would go. And I actually have the program downloaded on my phone as an app. And the person who arrives is to go onto that app and identify what kind of situation it is. And then be in communication with the office to call the ambulance, to call 911. So three clicks does not call 911. It just signals that somebody needs to go to the emergency, and then that person would make the phone call. But they at least know where to go, where the emergency is happening.
So I guess that only partially answered my question. If you have a staff member who, and what I heard was, if you need like the police or something more than a staff alert, you need a campus-wide something.
A lockdown.
The staff member just pushes that button and pushes and pushes and just keeps pushing until they get otherwise
It puts
distracted.
the building
or,
into a lockdown, and then the administration or the SRO would immediately know where to go, and then they would be on the phone with 911. And also our safety and security office, anytime a 911 call comes from any phone in the school district, we start getting phone calls on our office phones and on our cell phones. And so we're calling the school as well to get more information. And then we can communicate with police as well.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add that any system that we look at, an important process, or important part of it is going to be process. And a lot of these processes are already in place. And so it's just transitioning them from the systems we currently use into this system.
May I follow up, President Rice?
Go ahead.
So if I understand correctly, if you click beyond the 3, it's actually notifying the office, and the office is notifying 911. It's not circumventing the office directly to 911. It is a layer to indicate that we need to reach out to 911, correct?
There's a tiered hierarchy, and we can set up incident responses at various levels. So it can be a building level response team, a admin building level response team, district level response team. Like we currently have in our current systems, depending on the code you put in, it alerts various individuals based on the roles that they have for that type of response. So it's a hierarchical role that is assigned within the back end of the program.
So I'm going to follow up then. In any of the current practices, does it circumvent any of that hierarchy and go directly to 911? Or is that part of the currently existing process that it would be somebody from within the school making that call aside from the person clicking?
Depending on how the alert is initiated. So in our current system, the phone system that I currently alerted, it would be just like it would be in Strategics, but there are a few panic buttons in place that immediately dial 911.
I think then the one other thing I would like to surface in complete transparency here for board members would be the question, will staff be required to wear this? Should we proceed and this become a proposal moving forward for staff in the Yakima School District?
No, my understanding is staff will not be required to have these devices, and I believe Bob Noah is going to be helping us come up with an opt-out form for people who do not want to have the device.
That may elicit a follow-up question from board members, not sure, but I'd like to open it in case you do have follow-up.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
President Rice,
Go ahead.
whenever we have a new system that would impact any of the bargaining unit members, there's typically a demand to bargain. So the decision as spelled out that it would be voluntary should greatly reduce the impact of bargaining. It is still something that we would require, but we will take that on a case-by-case basis as alerted by the unions. And we have included them in the discussion on the front end so that they are aware of the system and the impacts that it would potentially have should you agree to go with this method.
Thank you, Anthony.
I just want to say I really like the idea. I think if I understand this correctly, we're not changing the whole procedure for, excuse me, responding to a crisis, but just the alert process, right?
Correct.
And that alert process can pinpoint where that individual is and where the crisis is occurring. And the process with 911, it's ongoing, right? It's you're feeding them information as the situation unfolds, or somebody there that's taking the lead and gets the information, and then they can respond appropriately. So I really like the idea about with this card and the whole system. And again, it's just going to make our campuses safer and be able to respond quicker to whatever that crisis or that need is. So I just wanted to thank you and the team, yes, for this great idea. So thank you.
I would like to comment that I think its strength is in a rolling event. When you think of a rolling event that is maturing in the moment, people start running, they leave their classrooms or they're in hallways, and you may not understand the nuance of what's happening, but suddenly you get this map that lights up where people are moving in a certain direction or not, and it gives us greater visibility into those early moments of that situation.
Thank you, Director Navarro, for those comments. I think about our custodial staff that works late at night as well, and knowing that there may be one individual at a building in a part of town that's leaving very late at night. We have several teachers that may stay after hours, and of course we know in the winter it gets dark earlier, and so there are some opportunities there for safety and security that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Thank you for the great presentation. It's very intriguing that the way technology is developing and how we can enhance the safety and security not only of our staff members but of our campuses as well. and our students. I assume that if there is any, if after review and appropriate fact-finding measures, if there's anything that will need to come forward to the board, we'll see that at some point.
Yes.
Yes, President Rice, as I mentioned previously, we have been assessing this over more than a year, so there has been a lot of vetting that has taken place. So do not be surprised if this moves rather quickly, but I do not have a date as of yet when this would or if come before the board again, but it may be sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next item on our agenda are reports of items of board interest. Is there any board member who wishes to bring anything to the attention of the board? Seeing none. Next
I could
is
just
the
I'll make a quick comment. Trevor and I
Okay.
attended the Area 8 meeting for the Washington School Directors Association and had an opportunity to meet with directors and superintendents from around our region. So that's always a nice opportunity to connect and see what's going on with other districts. And so had some nice conversations with some folks. I don't have anything earth-shaking out of that meeting, but I think it's useful to have recognize names and faces, and then when people have questions, they know where to go, and so that's a very useful thing to do.
And you were able to take a tour of Mount Adams' newest building, right?
Yes, it's a really nice new school, and they have been in need of that school for years, and it's really nice that they've
Very
achieved
long
that,
time.
so, yeah.
I'm happy that for them and for the students who are going to be in that building. So thank you for sharing that, Norm. Okay, next we've got the superintendent's update. Mr. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we have a couple of items of recognition. First and foremost, we are churning out doctorate after doctorate for people here in our district. So we have two new doctors. We have Dr. Jamie Johnson, who is newly appointed to our early learning program, our early learning principal. And here with us today, we actually have Dr. Kathy Page. So congratulations to both of those individuals. Again, quite an accomplishment, and I think it speaks to the opportunities that people see here in the Yakima School District and the elevated expectations as of late. So thank you to both of those individuals for their hard work, and we look forward to a couple of more announcements here within the next couple of years as we have other individuals that are participating in doctoral programs at various universities. Moving along, we're very excited to announce the return of Black Elegance. Black Elegance is being led by Sharon Harris from Stanton, the assistant principal at Stanton, is to recognize our African-American students and celebrate them here at the end of the year. It will take place on June 5th. That is actually a Sunday, and we do not have the time as of yet. Nope. So we will get that out to you, but June 5th, it's a Sunday. If you would like to attend, please do know that that is the date, and we will follow up to make sure that you're aware and have opportunity to accept or let us know your pleasure in that area. The speaker for that event is slated at the moment to be Erin Jones, and you know her very well, so we're excited about that, about her coming back and speaking and recognizing our students who are graduating, our African-American students across the district. Following that, on June 6th, which is a Monday, there will be a celebration, graduation celebration for our Native American students, very similar to that of Black Elegance, but recognizing our Native American students. That will take place at YV Tech, and that will be on Monday, June 6th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. 6:30 to 8 o'clock on Monday, June 6th, and we will make sure that that goes to you as well. The designated speaker at this time is Arlen Washins, who is really the right-hand man, so to speak, to our tribal chair. And we've met with Arlen every single time that we have had any interaction with our students, with our Native American relationship with the Yakima Nation. And we're excited about him being willing to be a part of that and to speak to our students. It is my understanding as well that Black Elegance has been confirmed. That was very quick. June 5th, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And that will be at YV Tech. So moving back to Black Elegance, June 5th at 2 p.m. to 3:30 at YV Tech. So those two events, again, will be coming to you via email for confirmation. Moving along, I did want to flag for the board that our budget proposals are moving forward. I don't know if Becky, I don't see, yeah, Becky's over here in the corner here. So we have Becky Neeson here, our Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, who is working diligently to project our budget. And being that this really time of the year moving forward in determining the budget, President Rice, I would suggest, if you would permit me, to have board members reach out to you on any proposals for the budget for the school board itself. As you're aware, there's a separate part of the budget allocated for our school board directly for training, travel, and such. And I wanted to make that available to you. And do you have a better way of doing that, or would you be okay serving as that point of contact for the entire board, President Rice?
I'm happy to do that. Typically, we have that conversation at the retreat in August to determine who's going to go where and when that would be. But if you need that sooner than the retreat date, we can certainly take care of it through one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, thank you for that historical context. We do need that sooner rather than later. So the date for the retreat is actually too late. So this would happen within likely the next 30 days. I got a yes and a please behind that. It was kind of a plead. So yeah, within the next 30 days, and we will work with you, President Rice, to make sure that we get all information that's needed for you and for other board members to make an educated decision around what that projection could be.
Okay, thank you. So just a note to board members, if you are thinking about traveling to a conference, particularly if it's out of state, please get that information to me, and I can collect it on the part of the board. If you have suggestions for bringing in like a trainer from outside to help the board with some type of training, let's surface that maybe at a future board meeting within the next 30 days for a discussion amongst board members. Any questions on that?
I recall that the board did agree that each board member would have access to one in-state and one out-state conference. So is that still in effect, or because I think if we have that information, we would know automatically what each of us have.
May I address that,
Yeah.
President Rice?
Go ahead.
I think we would want to budget for that. So yes, that would give us an idea of what is available. But I also recognize that the board members may want to attend more than one. So if there is one out of state that is of particular interest, there is also, I think, for all of the board, the school board national conference, which might be in addition to that. So I think we would rather make sure that we're projecting just a titch high and leave some room for the potential rather than sell ourselves a little too short in the process.
So am I hearing that we can budget anything we want? Is that what you're saying? Because I thought that's what you said, right?
You could absolutely budget anything that you want. So
Because I thought we had a certain number or percentage that we would get every year. So I'm just.
Becky,
Guess that's
would
what
you
I'm
like me to
getting
put you on the
to.
spot and bring you up here? All right, this is great, spontaneous. Thank you. I enjoy the verbal jousting, and now I'm calling in the reinforcements. So
Thank you, Superintendent Green. Board of, I'm happy to provide you information that I did last year at the retreat. I can put together information for you so that we can dissect it and make a really great decision for your budget for 22-23. That help?
That's a two-step right there. She got right around your,
Yes.
your question. So, okay. So, thank
We
you.
can certainly add this to an upcoming Monday agenda for more detailed direction and discussion if that is helpful.
That would be helpful. We'll make sure that we get that on the agenda here for an upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other item to share with you is that we have an exit conference for our audit team. That is the Federal Single Audit Exit Conference. And it is scheduled for May 16th at noon. And we already have Director Walker is our die-hard audit individual. So he will be at that event. He's scheduled May 16th at noon. And I'm just inquiring as to any other interest to participate in that Federal Single Audit Exit interview. Is there anyone else interested? All right. Reading the crickets in the room, we will go ahead and cut that off right now with Director Walker being our board representative for that exit conference. If anyone else has a desire later on, just please let us know or let me know and I'll make sure that we can make arrangements. With that, the final item just to share is again, thanking the board for the recognition of our speech and language pathologists and our teams there that make such a great impact on our students across the system and also our families. So to have them here for part of the recognition today and to take the time to honor these individuals is something that is very special. And I know that they appreciate it as I attend one of their meetings today. I would just also cite that in the information that was read by Director Walker, we have 15 speech language pathologists, and I believe we said we have 13 with whom that we are contracting outside. So that speaks to the shortage that we have across the state and likely across the country in locating those who are able to and willing to take that position full-time in a school district. So we're grateful for those that we do have serving, if memory serves, well over 1,000 students. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Director Rice.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members on the superintendent's report? Okay, hearing none. Please extend our congratulations to the 2 new doctorate recipients. It's exciting to know that given everything that's going on in the world of education today, there are people that are still interested in pursuing their doctorate and are accomplishing that on behalf of the students of Yakima. Okay.
Will do.
Next, we have an approval, and this is approval to purchase virtual reality laptop learning stations from zSpace in the amount of $270,043.88. Dr. Rodriguez, I believe this is yours.
It is indeed. Thank you, Board President Rice, members of the board. I am seeking approval for this purchase in the amount of $270,043.88 through zSpace. This will actually fund 2 full classroom sets for 1 middle school career technical education classroom and 1 high school career technical education classroom, along with all of the requisite technology. We're pretty excited about these machines. We've done a number of demos with principals and staff to take a look at it.
It actually is a laptop, just like what you see sitting in front of us this evening. And when you look at it, it has some tools where it visually actually pops out of the machine. So you can, for example, look at anatomy, the internal workings of the heart, and see how the blood flows through the body system. There are equally cool ones to look at in terms of like engines and other technology systems. So we're pretty excited to test these out in both the middle school and high school career tech situations. And so we're pretty excited that kids will have an opportunity to use. This is really cutting edge technology. The focus of the curriculum for these will be in biomedical and health sciences, as well as STEM and computer applications. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from board members? Maybe we could get a demo once they're in place.
We would be happy to do that.
That would be fun. Okay. The board is being asked to approve the purchase of virtual reality laptop learning stations from zSpace in the amount of $270,043.88. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Norm,
Second.
seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion?
No.
Okay. So Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a series of monitoring reports. The first monitoring report is 1000.2.0, Global Executive Constraint. And Bob No is presenting.
Thank you, President Rice. This evening, I'm presenting two different monitoring reports. The first is Global Executive Constraint 1000.2.0. The superintendent will not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational circumstance which is either unlawful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted business and professional ethics and practices. Further, the superintendent will abide by all negotiated agreements or rectify any violations as expeditiously as possible. Imprudent means without thought of the consequences and lacking in judgment or caution. The superintendent is in compliance here. The interpretation for this provision is that it means that the district must have appropriate policies, practices, internal controls, i.e. supervision, evaluation, mentoring, training, legal consultation, discipline, complaint, and grievance procedures, investigation protocols, external compliance reviews and audits, and that'll follow all the RCWs and WACs of the state of Washington. The evidence of compliance for this is that in terms of controls for internal, item number 1, the district continues to review and update and implement policies and operational procedures as required by law or to effectively operate the district. All administrative policies and operational procedures are aligned with the legal requirements of the ESEA, Title IX, the IDEA, EPA, Wiaa, OSHA, RCW, and the WAC. If there are any violations of policy or operational procedures, they're appropriately addressed and handled when they occur, either at the building or the district level. For harassment, intimidation, and bullying, for April 20, that looks like a typo there, April 2021 through April 2022, there were 103 reports identified. 21 were found to be cases of HIV. The report supports district evidence in tracking, investigating, and prevention of these future issues. The grievance log shows 26 grievances since the time of the last report. with 23 closed out and 3 still open. Superintendent's office monitors all internal fiscal controls. Superintendent and/or designee communicates with association leaders on either a regular basis or as needed to address issues related to collective bargaining agreements. All known concerns regarding employee conduct have been addressed. You'll see there's several bullet points there regarding training. All of that training has been provided. Public records requests are processed through district's public record office. Employee training occurs annually through the Safe Schools system, staff meetings, YouTube for safety, and the McKinney-Vento trainings. Job position specific trainings occurs for other employees in the district, bus drivers, food service, custodial and maintenance staff, YPTA, paraeducators, and secretaries. Coaches, volunteers, and parent training occur at the start of each athletic season. Customer service training is provided to secretarial and counseling staff. Let's Talk provides a way for students, families, community staff to have their questions and comments addressed. Currently, there's a score of 8.3 out of 10 for service, and they have processed in excess of 4,000 dialogues. In terms of external controls, there were no external audit findings. This is the 8th consecutive year that this has been the case. During the May 2020 exit audit for the year September 1, 2019 through August 31, 2020, there were no findings, and there was a confidence in the district's fiscal management. Washington State Accountability Audit Report results for September 1, 2019 through August 31, 2020, which was published in May of 2021, supports that the district has complied in all material respects with state law, regulations, and its own policies. Washington State Financial Statement and Federal Single Audit Report for September 1, 2019 through August 30, 2020, published also in May, supports the district confidence in internal control and financial management. I ask that the board enter a finding of compliance for this monitoring report. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Are there any questions for Bob on this monitoring report? Hearing none. SurveyMonkey will be sent out tomorrow to all board members for this and the other monitoring reports and board discussions that we'll have this afternoon. The due date for all of these is next Monday, the 16th, in preparation for approval at the May 23rd board meeting. Next, we have a report on 1000.2.9, communication and support to the board. Again, Bob, no presenting.
Thank you, President Rice. This is a 1000.2.9 communication and support to the board. Superintendent shall not fail to appropriately inform and support the board in its work. Find that the superintendent is in compliance here. The interpretation of this policy is that the superintendent will demonstrate a regular pattern of providing essential decision and monitoring of information to meet the board's work needs. Information is based on reasonable anticipation of the work needs of the board in cooperation with the superintendent and the operations of the school district. Because the board composition and informational needs change over time, this work will always be based on a dynamic set of understandings. Evidence of compliance of this is that all information in support of board meetings, the fulfillment of board legal requirements, board decision-making information, documentation of materials, board official documentation and records, board website and communications, calendar, workflow, and meeting logistics have been prepared and submitted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act and all of Washington state codes and laws. Superintendent and superintendent's cabinet have been working together to make sure the board is informed and updated on all matters of the district. Further, without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, the superintendent will not neglect to submit required monitoring data in a timely, accurate, understandable, and factual fashion directly addressing provisions of board policies being monitored and justifying the superintendent's interpretation. The superintendent is in compliance here as well. The interpretation of this provision is that all monitoring reports will be submitted on time with reasonable allowance for emergencies and unforeseen circumstances. All data, information, and board materials will be presented in a manner acceptable to the entire board to support the superintendent's interpretation. The evidence of compliance on this is that to date, all required monitoring reports have been submitted on time and in accordance with the board's annual policy governance planning calendar, exceptions being those when school board meetings were canceled. The monitoring reports have been accurate, understandable, and factual. Additional documentation and measures are now included based upon feedback and input from the board. Following the board's approval, monitor reports is posted on the district website under Board of Directors Policy Governance for easy access by the board and the public. The superintendent will not fail to report in a timely manner an actual or anticipated noncompliance with any policy of the board. Superintendent is in compliance here as well. The interpretation on this is that the monitoring reports must truthfully and accurately alert the board to any condition of current noncompliance or condition considered likely in the future, and should include a plan for incremental movement toward compliance in a reasonable time frame. Evidence of compliance here is that based on existing data, the superintendent has not failed to report to the board actual or anticipated noncompliance with the policy of the board. All the monitoring reports presented thus far in this year have been accepted and approved. 3, the superintendent will not neglect to submit decision information required periodically by the full board or fail to inform the board of relevant trends. Superintendent is in compliance here as well. You'll see there that there's a list of things that the superintendent periodically provides information, data, and evidence on. He has done so for all of those. Superintendent shall periodically provide information, data, and evidence of trends regarding student achievement data and educational standards, as well as best instructional practices. The evidence of compliance here is that the majority of these items and matter arise on a cyclical basis. School board minute documents, information provided in support of the board work have been provided in support of the board's work throughout the year. Applicable state laws, RCWs and WACs, have not been violated. The annual report provided the board provides information regarding student achievement data and best instructional practices. Many of the Monday meetings provide the board an opportunity to be informed of the most current program and district plans to meet the board's goals and Washington state requirements. Number 4, the superintendent will not fail to advise the board of any incidental information it requires, including anticipated or pending media coverage, lawsuits, material internal changes, staff initiatives, significant changes in district policy, operational procedures or program, or new major contracts or significant contract changes. Interpretation of this provision is that the superintendent shall provide this information as agreed upon by the board so that there will be no surprises to the board. Superintendent will keep the board informed through emails, meetings, written documents, or telephone calls. Evidence of compliance is that the superintendent does routinely communicate through monthly meetings, emails, phone calls, etc. to the board in order to meet the no surprises standard as it relates to litigation, personnel matters of a significant nature or sensitive nature, personnel changes, and matters likely to result in media coverage, student safety, and welfare. Superintendent sends emails to update the board that keeps the board informed of new and ongoing items of interest and information of non-confidential nature. Meeting the requirements of this limitation, the superintendent is supported by administrative assistants, chief communications officers, member of the superintendent's cabinet, and occasionally members of the leadership team. Superintendent provides confidential reports to the board and executive in closed sessions, specifically pertaining to topics that are outlined in state law and WACs that can fall within those executive sessions. Updates are communicated to staff and public through the district website, YSD app, social media, and more traditional outlets, including mass media. Item number 5, the superintendent will not fail to develop an annual calendar of topical areas of presentation to the board to include, but not limited to, special education, highly capable program, migrant and bilingual education, athletics, transportation, food service, and guidance and counseling. Superintendent is in compliance here. The interpretation is that superintendent will provide these reports and presentations to the board regarding various programs throughout the district. Evidence of compliance is that the superintendent has coordinated presentations for the 2022 school year to include discipline, PBIS, early learning, and monthly superintendent updates at business meetings. I actually think he does the updates every meeting. So plans to engage in study sessions around topics were postponed due to COVID-19. The board was committed to addressing equity for 2021 through 2022 school year in study sessions from November through May 2022, and has been doing so with the option of infusing or decoupling those topics within the discussions. Item number 6, the superintendent will not fail to advise the board if in the superintendent's opinion the board is not in compliance with its own policies, particularly in the case of board behavior which is detrimental to the work relationship between the board and the superintendent. Here the superintendent is in compliance. The interpretation here is the superintendent has responsibility to bring matters to the board's attention if, in his opinion, any board behavior is out of compliance with board policies. Superintendent shall handle all board noncompliance in the same manner complaints are brought to staff and remedied when and if possible. That will be addressed with each individual board member to which it applies, as well as bringing it to the attention of the board president. If an individual matter or the infraction is of the entire board, it shall be brought to the attention of the board as a whole. The evidence of compliance here is superintendent discusses all issues related to the board with the board president to seek guidance and direction. All matters have been successfully managed. Board discussions with the superintendent effectively provide dialogue and opportunity for improving policy governance and the role of the participants. And then on 7, the superintendent will not present information that is unnecessarily complex or lengthy in form, or in a form that fails to differentiate among the information of 3 types: monitoring, decision preparation, and other. Interpretation here is the superintendent shall submit all written and verbal reports in a manner which is brief, concise, and to the point, distinguishing between reports to be used to oversee operations, make decisions, or solely for informational purposes. More and more information and evidence will be web linked for easier access by the board and the community when appropriate. The evidence of compliance here is that the superintendent updates and reports, including emails, are complete and timely. The superintendent and his staff are responsive to the board. The superintendent and staff are continually seeking ways to improve reporting to be more concise and provide greater clarity. To date, the superintendent has received no board concern regarding information prepared by staff that was unnecessarily complex or lengthy. Of particular note is each building's school improvement plans and school presentations to the board are tied with the district's strategic plan. That should be the roadmap, not the, well, no, that's right, compass. Strategic plan and compass. Number 8, the superintendent will not fail to provide a workable mechanism for official board officer, or board committee communications. Interpretation here is the superintendent will provide systems that will facilitate a reliable flow between the board and the superintendent, board president, or other officers and the superintendent. This is also interpreted to mean the superintendent shall make available to the school board any requests regarding equipment and or staff to assist the committee communications. Evidence of compliance here is that systems are in place, including verbal, hard copy, and electronic mechanism to assure clear communication. Equipment and staff are readily available to assist the board when needed. Number 9, the superintendent will not fail to deal with the board as a whole, even when fulfilling individual requests for information or responding to officers or committees duly charged by the board. Interpretation, there's 5 individual elected board members comprising the entire board. If the superintendent provides information as requested by one member, it should be provided to all members. This also means that requests, suggestions, or direction of one board member should not be treated as a directive from the entire district, but rather redirected to the board as a whole for consideration. Evidence of compliance here is that board information and materials are provided in hard copy and distributed electronically in the same way at the same time to all members. Board files are kept in the superintendent's office to provide for traditional mailed materials and correspondence. Superintendent shall, with the board, opportunities for attendance at conference or shares with the board opportunities for attendance at conferences that are designed for professional growth. And lastly, item number 10, the superintendent shall not fail to supply the board's consent agenda along with applicable monitoring information, all decisions delegated to the superintendent, but which are required by law, regulation, or contract to be board approved. Superintendent's in compliance here as well. The interpretation here is that the superintendent shall advise and include consent agenda items that fulfill the board's legal, contractual, and regulatory responsibilities. This also means that the executive limitations that are imposed upon the superintendent are followed, and he's authorized to proceed or take actions without the board approval under that executive limitation. Evidence of compliance here is that all administrative policies, personnel actions, contracts, and other actions requiring board approval are routinely placed on the consent agenda. And background information, executive limitations material also provided to inform the board and prepare them for action. I don't have any recommended policy changes here and ask that the board find the superintendent in compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions for Bob on this policy?
I have a clarification on number 6, section 6. So it states, let me see, that the superintendent will, and I'm using the positive, so not negative, whatever, that the superintendent will advise the board if the board is out of compliance with own policies. And then the evidence says that the superintendent discusses all issues related to the board with the board president to seek guidance and direction in all matters were successfully managed. So that seems to imply that there were times that the board was out of compliance and that only the board president was advised when the policy states that the full board needs to be advised. So there's kind of 2 questions there. I just want clarification if, again, it does imply that there was some violation of board policy there. And then again, that the board president was the only one who knew about that.
President Rice, would you like me to lead off on this?
Yes, please, go ahead.
So the way that I would respond to this, Director Navarro, is that there were some incidents, or at least I'm thinking one such example in my head right now, where there was an issue that surfaced with a board member, and that was brought to the attention of President Rice. And then again, in her absence, it was brought to the attention of Vice President Villanueva to address with the individual. That did happen where it was addressed with the individual. but you are absolutely correct in the fact that if that is something that needs to be aired with the entire board, then that was a miss. So I think I'm in a little bit of a kind of a conundrum in how to handle something that is involving one board member that does not need to be per se public to the entire board, that may be an opportunity for growth or dialogue and resolve the issue versus flagging it for the entire board as a repeating issue. So I would defer in this case. I don't know, Director or President Rice, if you would have a follow-up comment, or if I would just conclude with that statement.
Well, I think we have a policy that we're going to discuss here in a little bit with the board. It's a board policy on the process for addressing board member violations. And if I remember correctly, in that policy, it's sort of a graduated or graded approach where the board president speaks with the board member, or someone in the board president's absence speaks with that board member. And then if my memory serves, if that is an issue ongoing and it doesn't get resolved, then it comes before the entire board. So it's likely that in this particular instance, it was resolved at the level where the board president or delegate speaks with that board member. Does that answer your question, Raymond?
This is the way I interpret it, is that there's probably we're talking two different violations, I believe. So the violation of the board, are we not following those board policies? Are we, are the agenda or whatever, not allowing public comments or whatever it may be, but as a board, understand the process for individual board member violations. And I'm not sure that this speaks to that. And I could be wrong, but I interpret this as the board and that is not, or is not in compliance with its own board or own, excuse me, own policies. So I don't know if there's a difference again between individual board member violation or the board violation. And I was alluding more towards the board, if we're out of compliance at all during the year. And if we were, it seems to imply that we were, and if we were, then it was only communicated with the board president.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. I think we are talking two different examples. So I can think of no violation of the board that was shared in the context of what you're mentioning. I think individual opportunities for growth are different versus policy violations. So thank you for clarifying.
There is that policy for dealing with individual board members and violation of policy. So you're saying there was no violations. Okay, thank you.
Would you be more comfortable if that sentence was reworded, Raymond?
I think I'm okay with the language. It says all matters, so it doesn't say violations. So if it did indicate or say violations were successfully managed, then I would like to see that changed. But I think we're good with what we have now. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for the question. Are there any other questions or comments on this particular policy? Okay, hearing none, that will also go to the SurveyMonkey, and we'll get those tomorrow and due by next Monday. Thank you, Bob, for both of those, both the discussion on both of those monitoring reports. Next, we have policy 1000.2.2, working environment of staff. Anthony Marietta.
Yakima School District Executive Limitations Monitoring Report, 1000.2.2, Working Environment of Staff. With respect to the treatment of paid and volunteer staff, the superintendent will not cause or allow a working environment which is unsafe, unhealthy, undignified, unlawful, inequitable, biased, or contrary to professional or industry standards. Further, the superintendent will abide by all negotiated agreements. I find the superintendent to be in compliance. Interpretation. Interpret this requirement as general protection of the fundamental rights of employees, as well as the obligation to provide a school work environment for staff and volunteers that is safe from reasonable, foreseeable, physical, and social emotional harm. The policy also specifically prohibits behaviors and omissions enumerated below. Compliance with this policy means that prohibited conditions are A, prevented, or B, readily corrected through appropriate rules and procedures. This policy is not a call for measures of staff satisfaction. Rather, it wants to know the undesirable conditions are systematically, proactively avoided and or addressed. The evidence of compliance. This is evident through the appropriate practices and operational procedures. Human Resource Department investigates allegations of misconduct and complaints from staff and supports building administrators in doing the same. HR maintains records of actions taken regarding staff misconduct and complaints. HR investigates and responds to grievances from staff and labor associations. HR maintains records of actions taken on grievances. The Executive Director of Student Services is trained in trauma-informed sexual assault investigation and adjudication. The Director of Human Resources is formally trained in human resource management. Employees and volunteers participate in criminal background screening before having access to students. Safe Schools is used to provide each employee with training on key topics, including general safety, harassment, intimidation and bullying, drug and alcohol-free schools, reporting improper governmental action, sexual harassment, student issue and response, bloodborne pathogen exposure prevention, child abuse mandatory reporting, discrimination of students prohibited, and discrimination of district staff prohibited. All employees receive handbook maintaining physical safety upon hiring. The benefits and employees safety manager works collaboratively with support services staff to address physical safety concerns, including maintaining a self-insured workers' compensation program that includes a return to work, light duty program, and work order system to repair unsafe or potentially unsafe facilities or working environment. Staff and students are trained annually on harassment, intimidation, and bullying, prevention and non-discrimination laws and operating procedures. Additionally, without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, the superintendent will not operate without written personnel rules which clearly set forth work rules and other operational procedures for staff, provide for effective handling of grievances, and protection against wrongful conditions such as nepotism and grossly preferential treatment for personal reasons. Protect against bias in the recruiting and hiring process. I interpret this to mean Human Resources will keep appropriate personnel policies, contracts, and procedures updated and accessible to all staff for reference in the daily operation of the school district. These working documents will, 1, set forth expectations of employees, 2, describe timely, agreed upon process for addressing personnel concerns or complaints and prevent implementation of unfair employment practices. Evidence of compliance. Written rules, policies, and operational procedures which fulfill this requirement are as follows. Yakima School District Job Application Management Software, HRM Plus, is built on federal laws and enforced by the Washington State's Human Rights Commission, forbidding discrimination in every aspect of employment. New administrators are trained on the hiring process, including the EEOC guidelines mentioned prior, in order to prevent discriminatory, unprofessional hiring practices. The following are the policy numbers, operating procedure numbers: 1610, conflict of interest; 1610X, conflict of interest disclosed form; 5000, recruitment of selection of staff; 5005, employment disclosures, certification requirements, assurances, and approval; 5010, discrimination of district staff prohibited; 5014, adult to student sexual abuse and harassment; 5222, evaluation of staff. 5223, conflict of interest. 5224, staff participation in political activities. 5240, resolution of staff complaints. 5250, termination of employment. 5254, probation, non-renewal, and termination. 5255, disciplinary action and discharge. 5260, tobacco and alcohol-free environment. 5454, civility. Specific appeal procedures provided as protection in the areas of civility, discipline, employment, reemployment, and harassment. Negotiated contracts with employee unions, each including informal and formal grievance procedures and remedies. School building staff handbooks addressing expectations of school employees. Provides mandatory training to all staff. Failed to inform staff of this policy. We are in compliance. I interpret this to mean that all employees will be specifically informed of the protections in the written policies, contracts, and rules that govern their workplace. The evidence of compliance. The district's internal email system and website provides staff members with direct access to all district policies, operational procedures, and negotiated contracts for real-time updates. Revisions are posted in a timely manner. All employees have received specific written instructions from the Director of Technology on how to access the internet and its staff resources. Employee handbooks are distributed to personnel as applicable. Copies of employee contracts are provided to all union members. This is either in written form or electronic form on the district webpage. Every new employee is provided an orientation session which informs him or her of personnel policies, collective bargaining agreements, and how to locate such information for reference. 3, allow staff to be unprepared to deal with emergency situations. In compliance. Interpretation. I interpret this to mean that the staff will be trained in and regularly practice emergency procedures regarding fires, earthquakes, threats of violence, and weather-related emergencies. The evidence of compliance. Building principals have been trained and are certified in incident command systems for schools. Federal emergency management systems required for all principals. Each school updates and submits to the Safety Security Director an emergency response plan on a yearly basis per RCW 29A.320.125. The district has assessed each school in training staff to respond appropriately to emergency situations such as natural disasters, intruders, fire, chemical, and other threats. Students have met requirements for reporting all monthly drills, dangerous chemicals, and emergency plans in the internal YSD school drill form with the Safety and Security Office. Each school has been trained in the following emergency procedures and drills per RCW 28A.320.125. Fire evacuation, lockdown, secure and teach, shelter in place, bomb threats, natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanoes. Each school scheduled a minimum of 1 drill monthly, including during summer months. Planning and training and staff also involves local emergency response agencies such as police, fire, and county and state. Monthly meetings are held district-wide for all school security staff. Overall security measures have been reevaluated and strengthened to include a Yakima Police Department and Yakima School District partnership that provides 7 school resource officers, engaging in after-action incident debriefing with Yakima Police Department, a review and revision of the Yakima School District plan for responding to students in social emotional distress is underway. Social emotional behavior specialists have been hired. Tighten building security measures to include security staff are employed at each middle and high school campus. The 2 Yakima Police Department SROs are assigned to support Eisenhower and Davis high schools. We will hire 5 school safety officers to support Stanton, Franklin, Lewis and Clark, Washington, and Wilson middle schools. They also regionally support elementary schools. Staff must comply with sign in and out with alarm codes to each building and secure to keep unauthorized individuals out of the building. Buildings have established one main entrance and maintain visible signage on campus and on all school doors directing visitors to the main entrance. Front entrance door secure with security camera, full screen monitor, and voice activated two-way communication. All staff are expected to wear an identifiable badge at all times. All school staff are to be instructed to greet and challenge strangers. They should report strangers to the office if they do not feel safe in approaching someone they believe to be an intruder. Parents are educated about access control strategies and the importance of following the rules. Video phone installed in all school main offices and administrative offices. Buildings have more than one system in place to plan for power outages, fire evacuations, bomb threats, active shooter, earthquake, etc. Buildings are to secure custodial entrances and delivery doors during and after school hours. All outside doors shall remain locked. Panic buttons have been added to all office locations. Parent Square is used district-wide for students and district to communicate with families in the preferred language. Informacast has been activated in all school campuses. This is a voice message system that circulates through the PA system and district phones during emergency situations. The technology department or individual schools may activate the system at any time that there is a threat. Emergency response charts are distributed to every classroom and office. Automated external defibrillators have been installed in all YSD buildings. District staff are working with the Yakima Fire Department to ensure that all AEDs have been placed in the most beneficial locations. 2 or more safety tubs are located in each building. AED, CPR, first aid has been provided for all coaches. AED, CPR, first aid trainings were held online and in person during the 2019-2020 school year free of charge. Trauma kits are in each school building for traumatic events, first aid. Trauma kit training provided to a minimum of 2 employees per building. Chemical hygiene plans in place for all schools. 911 posters distributed to each classroom and school. Participate in the Great Shakeout Drill. Reunification sites coordinated with community facilities. Weapon-free, drug-free, tobacco-free signs are located on each school campus per RCW 69.50.435. Per RCW 9.41.280, Yakima School District employees have attended or will attend the following training: cyberbullying in schools, active shooter, violent intruder training, threat assessment, gang awareness, S5 summit training for SROs and school security staff, monthly meetings with community partners, Yakima Police Department, DCYF, and I apologize, I don't know what that stands for, YWCA, or Comprehensive Health, for WAY, Domestic Violence Coalition, Student Re-Engagement Task Force. Bomb threat, drug awareness, crime prevention through environmental design, search and seizure, online safety, cyberbullying, transgender diversity, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, preventing educator sexual misconduct, verbal de-escalation training, bullying training, violent intruder training, response to student in social and emotional distress, crime scene investigation, crisis response intervention training for administrators, SROs, counselors on a yearly basis. Special education staff will be trained yearly in right response. Intra-agency juvenile accountability group, 1JAG, monthly meetings with probation counselors, Yakima Police Department, security staff, principals discuss local and interagency concerns addressing school safety for students, threat assessment of individual students identified, and gun-free signage updated spring of 2018. Recommended policy changes are none. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there any questions for Anthony on this particular policy? Hearing none. This one will also go into the SurveyMonkey, and it was brought to my attention that we do not have a board meeting on May 23rd. That's honors convocation. So these will be due on June 6th, right, Barb?
We
do the week before that for the June 6th meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just watch your email for all of these SurveyMonkey requests. Okay, thank you, Anthony, for that comprehensive monitoring report. If there are no questions for Anthony.
President Rice, if I could ask a quick question, just
Please,
as
go
a
ahead.
point of information regarding this whole section E of the monitoring reports.
Mhm.
The recitation of these at this board meeting, is that as a function of RCW, or is that a function of the just policy and procedure of our board?
That's our policy and procedure. A lot of folks have chosen to summarize the monitoring reports, but when you do that, you do tend to lose some of the flavor of the report. But this is something that the board, because of the importance of the monitoring reports and how we use them as a part of the superintendent's evaluation process, this is how we've chosen to address monitoring reports.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Next on our agenda are two board policies. The first one is 1000.3.8, the cost of governance. Do I have a board member who would volunteer to lead us through this one?
I can do that if you'd like.
Sure, go ahead.
1000.3.8, cost of governance. Because poor governance costs more than learning to govern well, the board will invest in its governance capacity. Accordingly, board skills, methods, and supports will be sufficient to ensure governing with excellence. 1.1, training and retraining will be used to liberally orient new members and candidates for membership, as well as to maintain and increase existing member skills and understandings. Outside monitoring assistance will be arranged so that the board can exercise confident control over organizational performance. This includes, but is not limited to, the fiscal audit. Outreach mechanisms will be used as needed to ensure the board's ability to listen to community owner viewpoints and values of the Yakima School District related to the development of the district's ends goals. This will include ensuring board contact information is publicly available. Costs will be prudently incurred, though not at the expense of endangering the development and maintenance of superior capability. Annually, the board will develop and approve a budget for training, monitoring, and advocacy mechanisms for the coming year. Additional member commitments or expenditures require board approval.
Thank you, Ryan. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions for edits to this particular policy? Okay, hearing none, this will go into the SurveyMonkey as well. The next one is 1000.3.9, process for addressing board member violations. Who would like to lead us through this discussion?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, we kind of referred to this one earlier, but the process for addressing board member violations, the board and each of its members are committed to full compliance with the provisions of the board's policies. In the event of a member's violation of policy, the board will seek remedy by the following process. 1, converse in a private setting between the offending member and the board president or other individual member. 2, discuss in private session between the offending member and the full board as permitted by law. 3, possibly remove from any leadership or committee positions to which the offending member has been appointed or elected. And 4, publicly censure the offending member of the board. This process will normally be progressive, except at the discretion of the board.
Thank you, Norm. Are there any questions or suggestions for edits to this policy?
No.
I do have one, but I'm trying to figure out my question here.
Okay.
So,
Do you want to float it through the Survey Monkey as a comment or a suggestion?
sure, I can do that.
Okay. And we can talk about it when we review the Survey Monkey for this particular policy, if that would work for you, Raymond.
Sure, and it has to do really with section or number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just more to do with how do we determine somebody has violated or is not compliant with the policy and that we have to take such measures. So what is the process or procedure for that? Do we call for investigation, audit? Do we call for, I mean, what do we, what does the process call for? So I guess I'm just trying to clarify that piece.
When we've had to do this in the past, it has been brought forward as a suggestion from a board member, and the board made that decision. Are you asking for
So without going into, without going into too many details, how do we determine somebody or a board member has violated board policy? As I guess, because in the past we've had different approaches to this.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm asking is, can we come up with something that's more standard? And I think we've had a discussion before, what triggers an investigation or a third party review or whatever. So I think I just want clarification on that for the future. Again, without going into any past actions of the board, but I think this just leaves it open to whatever action we decide to take, whatever day that, however we're feeling that day. So I just like to have a standard here in terms of what triggers any type of investigation, third party or otherwise.
Do you want to make some suggestions in that area?
I can.
Okay. I think that would give the board a place to start their discussion. Thank you for the question, Raymond. Okay. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Mr. Superintendent, do we have a need for executive session?
President Rice, we do have need for executive session under the categories, plural, current or potential litigation with legal counsel, and also performance of a public employee. My recommendation is 30 minutes between the two.
30 minutes for the two of them. Right?
Yes. Would you like me to break it down by item, or is that sufficient?
I think that's sufficient. I don't know, Bob, you want to weigh in on this?
I think it'd be better to identify each item and how much each item will require. I imagine it's 15 minutes per item, but is that accurate?
15 and 15.
Okay. All right. We do have a need for executive session on two different topics. One, the first one being current or pending litigation. And Bob, you'll be in the meeting with us as our legal counsel, right?
That's correct.
And that would be for 15 minutes, and then performance of a public employee for 15 minutes. What time is it? 5:39. I think probably folks would like a little bit of a stretch break. Let's take a motion to move into executive session for these two topics, and given the current identification of time for those two topics. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ryan.
Second.
Who was that?
I second.
That was Raymond?
Yes.
Okay. Barb, could you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Will you all be down in the professional library?
We will, and we'll just bring our laptops and everyone will join into a breakout room for the
Okay.
executive session.
So let's reconvene in 5 minutes at 5:45. That gives people a little bit of a stretch break, and we'll reconvene at 5:45 in executive session. Thank you all.
What's in the calendar? We've done this before. I'll tell you someday I'm going to really impress everybody. It's going to take a long time.
Worked out okay with her run.
Yeah, the sound is great.
I know, today.
Hello, Barb.
Yes. Hello?
Are you putting us in a room or do we need to?
I'm waiting for Director Walker to join because I can't let him join it
Are you
afterwards.
placing us in a
On
room,
his
Barb?
way down, and he's going to log in on his laptop, and then I'll hit the breakout room. Is that okay?
She should move you to a room. So you're not there yet.
No, break rooms are in session. Okay.
So, well,
It'll,
there it is.
Here we go.
Okay.
it'll be important that not everyone's speakers are enabled.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Is everyone back? All right. Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Everybody have a good week. Take care. Stay warm tonight.